Okay, hi there everyone. I'm Roxana for Florida Space Coast. Still fairly new to the market, been in the market for the past year now, so hopefully I can tell you a few new things about our region. Um, I'm going to whisk you over to the east coast of Florida now, to the red shaded area you can see on the map here. We're literally on a level with Orlando geographically. So if you were to land at Orlando International Airport and drive for 45 minutes due east, you would literally come out at the Space Coast. So very accessible from the Orlando region. However, you can also fly straight into the region into Melbourne Orlando International Airport in the south part of our region by taking the TUI flights, which are actually coming in from 8 UK airports now. So that is very accessible and also the closer option for you basically nowadays. You can also come up from Miami driving, of course. That's also very easy to do. We're going to have a closer look at the actual area. So that here it is now. You can see we have a long coastline, an Atlantic coastline. We have over 70 miles of beaches all along that coastline. But you can also see that we have a lot of inland waterways as well. These are the intracoastal waterways, the Indian River Lagoon, and also the Banana River. The Banana River you can see just behind the red-colored Port Canaveral. And if you look carefully, you can actually see that it's in the shape of a banana. I always think that's quite easy to recognize. And then when you move inland, we have lots of little communities and little towns along the mainland as well. So it's covering quite a large area. We're all about the beaches, like I said, so over 70 miles of beaches, very extensive beaches. However, with this backdrop of the space industry. Because we have the space industry in the region, there are whole areas where no construction is allowed, where you don't have any hotels or offices or homes or anything like that. And that gives the nature plenty of space to expand. So there's lots of opportunities to see the countryside. And we're also home to Port Canaveral, which is one of the busiest passenger cruise ports in the world. That's very centrally located in our area. Cocoa Beach is probably our most popular beach. It's centrally located in the area on the Atlantic coast. We have several hotels there, restaurants, some shopping. Cocoa Beach has the pier that you can see here. There's also some shopping along that pier. And at the very end, there's this very nice tiki bar restaurant that you can visit. And you can already see what's going on in the area with the surfboards lying there. So it's a very popular area for the surfers. And something that I think is really nice is if you ever have guests or yourself wanting to try out surfing, it's a perfect area to have a first surf lesson, literally. And it starts very basic. I say basic, I'm sure it's probably not that easy, but the first lesson is literally riding the wave in a straight line, from maybe 50 yards out up to the beach, and then getting off the board when you get to the beach. So it starts very kind of slowly, but it's great fun. So if you ever have guests wanting to try that out, I can definitely recommend that. If you're looking for something a bit different, you'll see on the map I've shaded these areas at the top and at the bottom of the map there. In the northern part, we have the Canaveral National Seashore. So this is a protected area, hence there is a fee to enter. But the picture on the left shows you that this is a very remote area, actually. I have been there, I've driven up there, got out at various points, and there was hardly anybody on the beaches up there. There was some surfers out in the ocean, but that was about it. So very peaceful, very kind of tranquil area up there. And then in the very south, we have the Sebastian Inlet State Park. Again, it's a state park, so there is an entrance fee. But the interesting thing about that is basically divided into two parts. You have the Atlantic side with the beach and the waves, as you would expect, but you also have an inland lagoon, which is what you can see on the pictures there. And that's great for families, maybe with younger children, who can just wade in the kind of protected area of the lagoon, look out for some little animals in the rocks there, things like that. And there is a pier at Sebastian Inlet. And I walked along there. There were fishermen out there, wanted to see what they were doing. And then totally unexpectedly, in the water in the Atlantic side, I saw dolphins, sea turtles, even manatees in the ocean, just by walking along the pier. And I wasn't even planning on seeing that, but there they all were, very accessible. So yes, we're all about the space industry. So I don't know if you're aware, but we literally had 72 launches from our region last year. And there has never been a better time to come and witness a launch, and the chance of seeing a launch has never been as high as it is right now. We do have an app. It's called the Space Coast Launches app, and you can download it onto your phone and then look when the next launch is going to take place. So I did that earlier today. The next launch is on the 24th of February, so in 2 days. It's around about 10 p.m. So you would get all this information when you're also there on holiday. There is a countdown function. It goes to a live cam at the time of the launch. And if the launch is in the dark, let's say, you might not know exactly where to look, there's also a compass element that points you in the right direction, so you're not going to miss the launch. So that's something really exciting, I think. And it's mainly the satellite launches from the SpaceX program that are going up currently. We're also home to the Kennedy Space Center, of course. That's our largest and most popular attraction in the whole region. I'm sure many of you have perhaps visited the Kennedy Space Center in the past. If you haven't visited recently, there are a few new elements. So what you can see here is an area called Gateway, and it's basically taking you into deep space with 4 simulated rides. Now, I took one of them and I went to Mars. It took me about 5 minutes to get there and back again. Can definitely recommend it. So that's one of the newer attractions there. We still have Space Shuttle Atlantis on display. That was the last space shuttle to fly. It flew 33 times. It was very instrumental in the building and development of the International Space Station. You can see how close up you can get to it. And there's also a simulated ride in this area. It's called the Shuttle Launch Experience, and it lasts about 7.5 minutes. So that's one of the highlights there. On the next slide, you can see the the Saturn V rocket in the Apollo Saturn V Center. Now, that is part of the bus tour, which still exists across all the NASA grounds, where you can get on and off at various stops and then end up at the Saturn V Center. It takes you all through the history of space travel, starting in the 60s. You can see the prices that I've brought up there. Those are basically the gate prices. So if you're booking via a tour operator or a ticket agent, you're probably going to have a lower rate. But just to give you an idea, and because there is so much to see and do at Kennedy Space Center, so there's also the IMAX films, there's enhanced experiences such as Chat with an Astronaut, which takes place twice a day. It is hard to cram everything into one day now, so maybe consider the 2-day ticket if you want to take the edge off having to rush from one experience to another there, but definitely worth visiting. Bit of a hidden gem almost is the American Space Museum. It's up north. I've drawn a little circle on the map in the inland town of Titusville. The monitors you can see here were literally taken from rubbish tips, and this whole museum was compiled by the space workers, so the people working in the space industry. So it's basically showing the whole history of space travel from a different perspective. You can see that it's very inexpensive. $10 for adults, only $5 for children up until the age of 18, which I think is quite exceptional for Florida. The workers there, they're so passionate about what they're doing, and they'll talk to you when you're visiting, and it's a really fun experience. So we mentioned the nature earlier. Very close to the Kennedy Space Center, we have the Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. Again, this is a protected area, so there is a fee to enter. There's a visitor center. There's a boardwalk you can walk along near the visitor center. There's a manatee observation deck. But my must-do is driving the Black Point Wildlife Drive in your own car, in your rental car. It's 7 miles long. You can get out of your car wherever you like. There's various trails and areas to stop at. And you're basically looking out for wildlife. You're looking out for the various kinds of birds that we have in the region, or the alligators, or the tortoises, the turtles. And I always say it's a bit like a mini Florida safari that you're taking there, and very remote, very peaceful, and very kind of out in the wilds. Another highlight is definitely the bioluminescence, which we find on the inland waterways. So on the inland waterways, you have a mix of freshwater and saltwater, and there are organisms in the water that glow when they are moved. And the main season for this is July to September, so perfect for our summer travel. And it's best done in an organized kayak tour, as you can see here on the right. You can see how the water's glowing around the oar, but even more special, when the fish swim by, the water around the fish glows, and quite amazing when the dolphins come by, the dolphins glow as well. So it's almost a mystical experience. It's very magical to experience. And if you don't want to go out on the evening to see that, of course, you can go kayaking in the daytime as well. It's a really nice thing to do. We have the sea turtles. They're coming in from the Atlantic, and they're coming in all summer because we have 4 different kinds. They come in from March to October. They normally come at night. They come up the beaches and lay their eggs at the top of the beaches near the sand dunes and then return to the ocean. So the most popular are actually the green sea turtles and the loggerheads. The areas where they lay their eggs are protected. There are like wooden stakes or sticks around them, so you're not allowed to go there. But it's great fun in the mornings to go for a stroll on the beach and look for these tracks in the sand. And to me, it always looks like someone's taken their car and literally driven into the ocean and hasn't come back. But that's the sign that the turtles were there the night before. So it's great to go out, and if you see those tracks, you know that there was activity. And we had over 50,000 nests last year, so there is a lot of activity going on. Port Canaveral, it's always on a par with Miami, who has the most passengers, but very busy. I've listed all the cruise lines that are serving Port Canaveral at the moment, including TUI Marella, which was the last one to join. For me, one of the most interesting things about Port Canaveral is that it's more of a destination than a harbour necessarily. You can literally drive there, you can park, you can get out and walk around, and there are restaurants. You can have your lunch or your dinner sitting outside and watching the ships coming in and out of the harbour. So it is more of a destination than an actual harbour. And as you can see on the map in the red shaded area, it is very centrally located. As we go inland to the mainland, we have inland communities. So let's say you have a Cocoa Beach. Inland, you have a Cocoa Village. You have a Melbourne Beach, and inland, you have a West Melbourne. And other towns are Viera or Titusville, Palm Bay, the O'Galley Arts District, which is close to Melbourne. And these are small towns. It's nothing big, nothing crazy. It's all quite quiet and low key, but lots of little shops, little cafes, little restaurants. It's very picturesque. And you can really kind of get a sense for this small town, typical Florida flair that we have there. I think our largest shop is in Cocoa Beach, and that's the Ron Jon Surf Shop. It is part of a kind of small chain that we have in the US, but this is the figurehead store. And it's all about surfing, of course, but also beachwear, beach accessories, and it's also home to the Florida Surf Museum. So if you're interested in seeing the surfboards from the beginnings up to the high-tech models of today, it's great just to go there to look at them. And some of the surfboards are true pieces of art, basically. So that's a great experience. I know we've been talking a lot about food probably over the last 2 days, so we're no exception. What you can see here are 2 specialities from the region. On the right, you have the rock shrimp, and on the left, the Atlantic crab. So any kind of seafood, fish is very popular. We're also home to 7 craft breweries. A really nice thing I always think is that we have a lot of outdoor dining. So a lot of places where you can sit outside for breakfast, lunch, dinner. And even in the inland communities, we have a lot of rooftop restaurants. So that's a really nice experience. So you're not always inside in a cold, air-conditioned room necessarily. You can do a lot of your dining outside in the region. So now we're going to show you a short video that kind of gives you an overview of everything I was talking about. I think it lasts about 2 minutes, and then I'll be back at the end just to wrap up for the destination. So hopefully that gave you a feeling of what it's all about to visit. And really just to wrap up, we're very accessible, both from the Orlando region or flying straight into the Melbourne airport directly. We have so many activities that are out on the beaches or in the nature. So they're either free of charge because you're simply just outside, or they're very inexpensive. So we're not talking about hundreds or even thousands of pounds for tickets for activities for the family. Our hotels are mainly 3 and 4 star, but often the chains are represented here. So you have the Holiday Inns, the Crown Plazas, the various Hilton categories. So you often have a brand behind the actual accommodation, but a less expensive rate than you're going to have in the larger Florida cities. And with the small towns that we have, you have a lot of the authentic Florida flair right at the doorstep. So you're very kind of close to life as it goes on there. However, with this high-tech background of the space industry. And perhaps remember the name Artemis. That is the latest NASA space program that actually started last year with the very first unmanned launch. And it will continue this year in November with a manned spacecraft, which is going to orbit the moon. The aim is to land back on the moon probably next year. So I think over the next weeks, months, you're going to hear a lot about the Artemis program in the media and in the news. And then just remember that's all happening from the Space Coast directly. So keep an eye out for that. And thank you for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Love to stay in touch. Thank you.